the noon bell to ring. If you want to just write who you are, let us know who's in the room and where you're from. I'm Robyn. I'm from DeKalb.
And I'm Alexandra, and I'm in Richmond, Virginia. And make sure that you're putting that to all panelists and attendees.
Oh, good. Thanks for the reminder. I almost didn't do that myself, Alex.
Yeah, I think it automatically sets to the panelists for some reason. And we have Andrew with us. He's going to provide some tech support, and he's in the background. Hopefully he'll jump in, as he always does. Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer. Nice to see you on here.
From Sonoma. I wish I was there with you.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
All right. We got a couple more people on here who haven't introduced themselves yet. If you want to go ahead and just type your name and where you're from in the chat. And we're going to get started in 1 minute. Hey, Megan.
Hi, Megan.
Manitowoc. I hope I said that right. Wisconsin, great.
It's Manitowoc.
Manitowoc. Thank you, Andrew.
Yep, Wisconsin native
yourself,
here.
Right?
Manitowoc. Learn something new every day. It sounds like an indigenous name.
You know, Wisconsin has some really cool names like that. Milwaukee, and just lots of really cool American Indian sounding names. Hi, Sylvia from Cicero.
Hi, Asante from New Jersey. Nice to see you.
And Andrea or Andrea. Oh, mom to an 8-year-old. That's a fun age. I loved 8-year-olds.
I do too. They're like that perfect mix of still being little, but mentally and socially maturing.
Right. All right. It is noon, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who are just now joining, please put your name and from where you are. There we have Denise from Western Maryland. Welcome. Today we're going to do a financial vitality webinar, Children and Financial Vitality, the Greenlight card. I'm Robyn Harvey, and this is Alexandra James, and together we are going to co-host. Andrew, if you want to go ahead and forward. Hi, Dorothy. There's several ways that we can engage with each other. If you're not talking, please put yourself on mute. When you're ready to comment, if you can raise your hand, it's on your little taskbar. It says raise hand. We'll go ahead and unmute you on our end, and then you'll need to unmute yourself so you can be heard. Please be patient with us. As the webinar fills up with people, we will get to as many people as possible. And then, as always, feel free to type your comments in the group chat, but make sure it's going to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, you're just chatting with Alex and I, and the whole group will want to see. Our webinars run on a couple of agreements. Number one, we're going to speak from our own experiences using I statements. We're going to treat each other the way that we want to be treated using the golden rule. And the last one, it's a short webinar. It's only half an hour today, 30 minutes. So if you could put away all of your other projects and be fully present, fully engaged, that would be great. Hi, Asante. And I agree. So Asante started us off. If you agree to follow these agreements and can make that commitment, just type agree or I agree. Hi, Crystal. I see you too.
Sorry, I had a glitch, so I agree.
Thank you. All right.
So this week we've been talking about financial vitality, and financial vitality is about feeling secure about your capacity to meet your needs in our material world. The questions in this domain as part of our Vitality Cafes focus on building financial security, understanding and reducing stress in your life, and relationships as associated with money and money management. Next slide, please. So we want to talk about how do we talk to our kids about being financial responsible. And what does that look like? Because of course, being
All right, it looks like Alex was frozen. So we're going to talk about
we're just sharing.
oh, there you go.
Yep, it's just sharing. And so because we're just sharing, this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some ideas. One thing that we can do is make sure we're instilling a abundance versus a scarcity mindset. Now, of course, when we were on before, Robyn, we were talking about this, and she said, that abundance and scarcity go much deeper than just finances. We usually tend to associate them with finances, but it's definitely much deeper because it's about, this journey we're on is about all the domains of vitality. So you could have an abundance or scarcity mindset when it comes to your social vitality, when it comes to your spiritual vitality. So just in general, laying a foundation in your children and in ourselves, that we deserve abundance. And just because society would have us believe that there's not enough and we're always clamoring in the competition, that mind state just creates too much stress and just zaps your vitality. The other thing we want to make sure when we're talking to children about financial and teens about financial responsibility is not imposing adult money stress. I'm sure a lot of people know that it's kind of hard. I'm guilty. Like, you try not to talk to your kids to stress them out when you're on that paycheck to paycheck piece, but just kind of be mindful as much as you can, because of course we know people that we're on here, we're providers, we're parents, children do what we do, not what we tell them. Then we want to, another great thing is to create money values. What are your values around money? Have them posted. That helps when we do have those moments when we are having the adult money conversation and trying to figure out how to rob Peter to pay Paul and all of those type of things. So at least there's a visual around the house that these are our family financial values. And then use opportunity cost conversations. So when your kids say, hey, I want this video game. Okay, well, do you want the video game or do you think you should get this? Just offering them choices and ways to make them make the decision by weighing the opportunity versus what could be a loss if they spend their money a certain way. I think what's really, really important, no matter where we fall on the socioeconomic spectrum, is making sure that we teach social responsibility and philanthropy to our children, giving back, not just money, right? But teaching them that their time is associated with value. So when they volunteer, that equals value. And those of us who are in this nonprofit world, you can easily turn that time of people into dollars when you're applying for grants. And even in your budget, if you're not applying for grants, to teaching them about social responsibility. Plus it gives that, they're operating in that universal law that what you give, you receive back. Take financial field trips, right? We tend to do these as providers, especially those of us who have worked in youth development or work with youth who are aging out of care. But sometimes we don't think about it when we go at the grocery store. Let them make a list. Let them see how much things cost versus how much money you have to spend. And then the things that you buy, take it to make it a practical way and say, hey, we bought this, this, and this. How long did this last in reference to meals? And then there's other ways to take those field trips. And then this is my major one for me as a parent, particularly as an African-American woman, where one of my strong community activism responsible, I personally feel responsible, is Black economic power. So entrepreneurship is really important. I know everybody be on Facebook and social media, and they have these like memes, and they talk about one of the greatest things that you can do for your children, your teenagers, is giving them an LLC before they go to college. And so they can get all the tax benefits, plus they're raising income. So really encourage entrepreneurship. And then last, and you might not want to do this with your little kids, but I personally, because my children experienced like a lot of death from like 11 to now. My brother died and my mother died recently. And so talk about life insurance. Talk about wills, talk about investing. I think it's very important, particularly probably across the spectrum, but I know that life insurance is a real big issue in the African American community. People don't think about it. And then we have these GoFunds because people don't have the money to bury people. And so I think it's really important that we make sure we're talking to our children about life insurance and wills. And then if God forbid, if something happens to you, it's not just about the money, it's about who's going to be responsible for your children, for your assets, for decision making. And so I think one of the greatest things out of all of this is that insurance and making sure you have a will. And if you don't have a will, you don't want to go through that process. All you have to do is just make sure in your bank accounts, on your assets that your children or whatever other responsible adult, and then your children are your secondary beneficiary on all of your assets. Because then if not, the government, the state makes a decision, and who wants to leave that while someone is grieving? So next slide, please. And so then this Greenlight card, right? I wanted to like share this because this is like the most amazing thing. I recently got this for my twin daughters who are 14. You'll see this is just straight from their website. Its mission is to shine light on the world of money for kids and parents. It's a card and an app. It's really, really great. My teenage daughters use it. As you can see, it's personalized. They get to put their picture on it. So my children chose to put my mother on their card, which I thought was really neat. And it comes out super clear. It's beautiful. But you can do chore management. You can have your allowance on autopilot. You can do instant transfer to your kids. So no, they run out of money. They at the mom, I don't have any money, then you get real-time transactions, which I love. So like they're with their friends and they go to the store. I'm like, hey, I see you just bought such and such and such. You can specifically have spending controls for stores. I think that's great for those of us who have kids that are like into certain things and they can like overdo it. There's educational app for kids. In the educational app, it's just financial literacy tools. You can track their balance. They can track their balance. You're both on the app as different users, but you have the two different experiences because yours is the parental controls. You can switch the card on and off from the app. So if somebody isn't behaving, what a great disciplinary thing up, cutting the card off. You can do parent paid interest. So you're teaching kids about saving. They have their own version of way to save, which I think is really great. They can put their own personal saving goals for things they want to save for. And they can actually get cash out of the ATM, which is what a lot of these other cards don't do. And you can put controls on that. When your kids get to that age where they can work, you can have their checks can be directly deposited on this app. So this card will expand their lifetime from little kid all the way to college because of that direct deposit, which I think is really important. And then it works with Apple Pay and Google Pay. So they have 3 different plans. None of them are really expensive, but if you get the Greenlight Max card, which is the most expensive one, then it teaches your kids about investing, and they actually can invest. They can start with real stocks at companies that you use, and you can put $1 in. There's no max amount or minimum amount, but you can start with $1, very safe. And then they have all these lessons for the children around investing, about risk and loss, etc. So really, really, really great card. I encourage everybody to use it. It has really made a difference with me managing my children while they're out and away from me and managing their money. And I love the chore app because that's like the nice little carrot and stick. I hate to do it, but sometimes I have to because they're teenagers. Like, no, I'm not giving you an allowance because you didn't do this, this, and this. And you can have multiple people. So your husband, wife, your partner can also be on there and add money. Or like in my case, my father wants to like reward them, and I can connect it to his bank account, and we can separately send money to them for whatever it is. Mainly we do it for allowance. So anyway, check out the link inside of the chat. Really, really great tool. Whoever came up with this, it had to be some type of co-creation process because it's just so thorough that it thinks about the parent and the child and the collective future of the child versus a lot of other cards that I've seen. Next slide. And great, I actually ended at 113. I try to finish at 115 so we have time for discussion. And so now we're going to get into it and talk about parenting, society, and financial responsibility. So the first question that I want to pose to you all is, what were the messages you received about money as a child? And you can raise your hand, or you can just put it in the chat. And so while you're thinking, Andrew said that we had to earn it through chores. Yeah, I think making kids understand that they have to earn money is really good, especially, like I'm from the generation, I don't know, Robyn, if you're from that same, your parents, where they used to be like, and I didn't understand it till later, like money doesn't grow on trees. And then when I found out money was like made from trees, I was like, well, technically, my mind, technically it's from trees because it's paper. But I think that saying something like that and then having a chores helps. Crystal said you got, hi, Crystal, save every penny. Takesha, yep, money doesn't grow on trees. Andrea says save everything. Don't spend it all in one place. Save it. Rebecca says allowance separate from chores to help us learn about money. Interesting.
And in my family, it wasn't about what we did. It was about being part of the family. Chores were expected. They weren't paid. And we got money for what we needed sporadically. There wasn't a lot of money lessons in our family. We were given the money and kind of let loose. And it's really interesting because my husband, his family was very similar. All of his needs were taken care of, and they always gave him money, but nobody really talked to us about what to do with it, or how to save it, or how to plan to utilize it smartly. And so my husband and I had huge struggles in the early part of our marriage, because we would get money and we would be like, wahoo, like, let's go spend it, So it was really, really interesting.
I saw a different, to that point, I saw a different concept. I've seen a lot of people say, but the same concept about money and the chores they were expected. It was weird because it was expected, but we also got it attached. But I saw this other way to phrase it: instead of chores, do it like it's commission based. So it was really, really interesting.
Yeah. So do you want me to go through some of these comments?
Sure.
All right, because we have quite a few. So allowance separate from chores helped us learn about money. That was from Rebecca. Tammy offered, we were told we did chores or babysat younger siblings because we're part of the family. But then if we wanted to go to the mall or skating, we were given a little spending cash. That was kind of how I was too, Tammy. And then Dana, hi Dana, nice to see you again. She said, poor ones. My mom was always sneaking money from my dad. I grew up with dysfunctional views that a wife was the irresponsible and the overspender. Same here, Dana, for sure. That was a huge message in my family as well, which caused me to be sneaky too in the beginning of our marriage. I remember when I finally had a come to Jesus moment and cut up my husband's debit card that I carried in my wallet, and I gave it back to him and said, I don't want anything to do with this anymore, because it was causing us to always have a lack of money. I like things, so I'm buying things anyway. All right. And Jennifer says, I'm still trying to understand my learned relationship with money, but the message was we don't have enough, but we still spent too much, which was confusing. I think that resonates with a lot of us. Jody said we earned through chores, then we had to save 25%, tithe 10%, and had 65% for what we wanted or needed. My mom, from Megan, my mom would take us shopping and then hide it from my dad. I recognized this dysfunction as an adult. Denise, I was told I could not handle money because I would only buy candy. I never asked to learn how to handle finances and needed to learn them the hard way. And then Rebecca, same here. Chores were a part of being a family, and not much info. Just figure out for yourself. If you spend it all, you don't have anything for later. And then Dana also offered, I never received an allowance. I had to beg for money until I got a job. Then I had no useful skills to deal with it. Ashley, in my family, my dad would say to spend money on things we need, not things we want. Yeah.
Interesting what you were saying about the view about the wife, because it was the opposite. My mom was the one who managed all the money and managed my dad, even though he was the provider of the money with his spending. And so it was a really interesting dynamic. But because my mom grew up in a very rural area, and she grew up very, very, very poor, like in the 80s, no running water, lights, outhouse, wood stove situation. I think unintentionally she had this whole really, really, really tight to money. And so I had to really rework about that abundance mindset. And she was great though, because she saved a lot of money. But like, I really thought we were poor until like the first time in middle school when people came over and they were like, she wouldn't let us buy name brand stuff. Like, you know, I see somebody have like all these 5411s. I'm dating myself. The 5411 Reeboks, every single color. And I'm begging for like, can I just get a pair of Nikes? And she's taking us to Kmart. And I'm in there like, everybody knows this outfit's from Kmart. You know, that pressure in middle school. But then I would go to their house and I would think they would live in mansions, and they wouldn't, because they had so many clothes. So in hindsight, I appreciate it.
You know, Alex, I had a similar situation. When we were in late middle school, my parents separated for a while and we had to move in with my grandparents. And I remember my very wise grandmother on one of our nightly walks. I was like marveling at all these humongous houses. Now, my grandma and grandpa didn't live in a huge house, but the neighborhood next door to them was where the bigger houses were. And I said, oh, you know, someday I want to live in one of these houses. These are beautiful. They're huge. There's so much space. She said, Robyn, look through the windows. And I said, what? She said, look in the windows. They don't have any furniture. They overspent on their house and they can't put anything in it to sit on. And that lesson always stuck with me. Like, to, you know, have a holistic life, I had to plan to spend, not overspend on a house, but sit on the floor.
You know, that was the same lesson. Like when I would ask for the name brand stuff, she would be like, do you want name brand clothes or do you want to go on a vacation?
Mm-hmm.
And so then that taught me, like, people might have had all this stuff, but they had never left the city. And my parents were very intentional about taking us places. So I really appreciated that as I got older.
I'm going to read this comment from Tammy, and I'm going to tell you one more thing. Oh, once I hit 12 years old, I started babysitting for other families and didn't have to ask for spending money anymore. At 14, I got my first job and I haven't worked, or I haven't stopped working since. Me too, Tammy. I remember when I was a senior in high school, I'd wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'd open Hardee's. I'd serve breakfast there until 8:15, go directly to high school. I would get off because I was in a work program at noon, and then I'd have the rest of my afternoon off. But I worked every single morning.
I worked for Pizza Hut delivery, and then A&N. I don't even know if people know what that is, but it was like a cheaper Foot Locker.
Yeah. And Tammy, I do think the expectation on kids was a bit different than, at least in my experience, it was. Andrew said another message I received from money was generational. Looking back on it, it was interesting to see how one side of my grandparents treated money and skimping and saving after having grown up poor in the Great Depression. Absolutely. I had all of those kind of examples too. My grandparents were Great Depression grandparents. Two sides of the coin though. One was wealthy, one was poor. And so I got to see both sides. But the thing I want to bring up is I'm part of a sibling group. I'm the oldest. I have a sister and then a brother. All three of us got different messages from my dad. We absorbed different messages. So my dad was a contractor. He'd hand over a small amount of cash, you know, when he'd get a big payout from his house building, and give it to us. My brother would come home with one sweater and a pair of jeans. My sister would come home with 3 tops, a pair of shoes, some jeans, and maybe a necklace. I would come home with like 30 t-shirts and, you know, all of, everything I needed because I was frugal and shopped. And while my brother was really concerned about outward appearances, I was not.
Yeah, that's so interesting because my twins do that. And then what happened at middle school when I became like, you know, Afrocentric and started learning about my history and culture, I stopped caring about the name brand books. And I was like, oh, let's go thrifting, or let's do this because it's not important. And I see that with my twins now, but one is frugal and save they're both like that now. And then the other would spend every little piece of money she had.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw that. Jennifer said, same Tammy, financial freedom as a teenager was good and bad. Yes. And I think that these days there are a lot of pitfalls that parents have to watch out when you're handing your kids just cash. Tammy also offered, very true, Jennifer, although my car insurance and other responsibilities were covered before I blew what was left, I didn't save it unless it was saving up for something I wanted or needed.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I had to pay if I had the car. I got up this early like you did too. Robyn, I had like 2 AP classes my senior year. But I ended up spending, it was so weird. I didn't end up spending my money on clothes. I would like go into Barnes and Nobles and buy like ridiculous amounts of books and music, which is, and like good food, which is still like my vice.
Yeah. And, books have always been my vice too. But fortunately, I had a very benevolent grandmother with similar reading tastes. So she'd buy the books and then I would get them next. I think that is one of my biggest expenses to this day is my Audible account.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Even though I'm still a paper book person, I like need it in my hand. I try.
Yeah. I don't have any more bookshelf space.
That's a good problem to have. Books definitely, says Dana. So next question, how do you teach your children? Oh, no. We were talking about the next question. If these messages that you received were based on a scarcity mindset, what did you do to change it to an abundance mindset? And then you can also go ahead and add in here about how do you teach your children about financial responsibility? Also at the bottom of this slide, you'll see a lot of different resources. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. Angela put them in the chat, but a lot of neat things and ways you can start to teach your children from 2 years old all the way through college.
Yeah, and Dana said scarcity. She's still working on it very slowly. I think that that's true, Dana, for a lot of us. That's a really hard mindset to overcome.
Yeah, me too.
Rebecca says still working on balancing spending and saving. Tammy, I'm still working on scarcity/abundance mindset. I am too. And one thing that I would have to say that I do with my kids is when they ask me for something, I always equate it to the hours I have to work for that, because I want them to understand that I work really hard and that this is a sacrifice of love, that I'm giving you this money because money is time. And so this $100 that you just took from me, I had to work 5 hours for it.
Mm-hmm.
Megan says, I definitely need more education and information how to overcome the confusing messages. I learned in childhood about money. I feel like I have the intellectual knowledge, but there's an emotional piece that kind of sabotages the rest. Yes. Jennifer says, sometimes I have to trust the universe. I will give what I get, or I will get what I give. Yes, I love that too, Jennifer. I said that to somebody this morning. I'm going to put this out there and it's going to come back to me tenfold. I know it.
With my scarcity mindsets, I haven't got all the way there, but I did start saying to myself constantly, I always have what I need. And so now it's interesting. Like if I happen to run out of money or I have an emergency repair, money will just come. And so I was like, and I've seen it happen over the years. I'm like, okay, now I need to step my game up to say I have more than enough money. But literally, because I have programmed myself, I never, even when I run out of money, it is so weird. Somebody will randomly do something, or just strangers just randomly like, oh, I just want to bless you. And I'm like, oh, I needed this $20, whatever it is.
It's true. Dana says, oh, I love that, Robyn. And Crystal said, I do that. My 12-year-old wanted to spend his Christmas money on a ridiculous toy. So I made him work around the house for as many hours as it would have taken him to earn that money at minimum wage before buying the toy. Yeah, I think that equating, and I think that sometimes is a complex thing for our brains to handle as well, equating work and money versus the abundance, mindset. I think that how I have gotten around that as a mom is God has blessed you abundantly to work hard for what you need. He's not just going to, smash money into your head or to your hands. That you have been given a good, healthy body, a good, healthy mind, and you can do it.
Definitely.
And it's even better if your work is for the good of other people.
So we have 2 minutes left. If anybody wants to answer the last question, you can put that in about what would be the difference with the public school system, but we didn't get to that. And then Dana says, I've taken the Dave Ramsey course twice, but it doesn't do a great job of how to budget. So I'm using Budget Bootcamp right now from Jordan Page, and it's a good basic foundation course. Oh, thank you for sharing, Dana.
Yeah, that's really great, Dana. We use You Need a Budget. It's an app on our phone, and I call it my electronic leash. Because then my husband gets to see every cent I spend and where I spend it. But it's okay. It's for the good of us. I know it. But it did take me a while to, embrace that. Melanie offered, teaching children to invest is a great idea. My son actually got us all started in Robinhood and other apps that you can invest a little at a time and get a return. Even small amounts like $2 to $3 at a time. That's awesome. Anybody else?
So as we have 1 minute, keep adding on, which make sure you join us in this social media vitality journey, and you'll see all of our social media handles. Just like, follow, share, and spread this message on this journey that we're on. And then upcoming webinars tomorrow, Side Gigs and Living for the Hustle with Sarita Washington. On Friday, we have a Financial Vitality Cafe. Again, that goes the full hour. And then next week is Social Vitality. So you'll see the topics there. Please register and share. Next slide, Andrew. And replenish yourself through the domains of vitality. You can get a Vitality Cafe in the box, a Recovering Together Cafe in the box, and our Journey to Vitality posters, which are really good because that way you're kind of just visually reminding yourself and your family about the Journey to Vitality. And Megan says she loved both. Both of you are great. Learned so much in a short time. Thank you. Tampa said I was taught to balance a checkbook and do my taxes in high school, but I later found out that was rare. Yes, very rare. And I think it would be great to start teaching financial literacy. There's some more messages in here. Just want to tell you, thank you. Yes, it's never long enough, the 30 minutes. Thank you all for joining us. We hope that you will join us back tomorrow. Thank you, Robyn. Thank you, Andrew. We will see you back on